Hello and welcome to Analysis. I am Oyi Adekunle. Now, in June 2021 alone, no fewer than 1,031 people were reported killed by gunmen across the country. This is according to a report by security risk management and intelligence consulting company Beacon Consulting. And the report showed that a total of 275 persons were killed in Zamfara State, while Kebbi and Niger State lost 93 and 91 persons respectively during the month of June. According to the report titled Nigeria Security Report, majority of the cases were recorded in areas being plagued by banditry. The report also includes fatalities recorded from attacks by Boko Haram and related groups and, of course, unknown gunmen. But let's now get more details on this security report. I now have joining me on the program Dr. Kabir Adamu, the Managing Director and CEO of Beacon Consulting Limited, of course, the company that released that report. Dr. Adamu, thank you very much for joining me on the program. Now, how did you come about this report?
Thank you, Wayne. We have a database of security incidences where we use industry practice to first of all collate the incidents and then analyze the incidents, and then from that analysis we produce the trends that have been represented in that report. Our procedure for collection as well as verification and authentication is quite strenuous. So when we receive a report, we put it through a checklist of about 124 standards, and once it passes at least about 70% of that standard, then we include it in our database. Even at that, we subject it to a peer review sort of mechanism where we have other industry practitioners, some of them in the public space, who go through what we have collected, and where they have issues with what we have added, we either edit it or we remove it. So it's a compilation of that and analysis of that was represented in that report. To add, the aim and objective of the report, in summary, is to support the business community, in particular foreign investors as well as local investors who are challenged by the security circumstances in Nigeria and who need tools like the ones that are contained in that report for security risk management. So it's not just the statistics, it is the fact that the statistics present a granular representation of security within the 36 states of Nigeria and the Federal Capital Territory, and allows security managers to take decisions vis-a-vis their profiles and the objectives of their business orientation. Sometimes where they need our support, we come in to support them. We realize that risk, as we know it, is a major impediment to business. And so where you can lower the risk through products like the ones that the report is presenting, it helps the business industry. And that is really why we're producing this report.
And from what you've said, it does show that a lot of thorough work has gone into this, and it's something that you do quite often. Now, 1,031 deaths in 1 month alone. Now, since you've been doing the reports on insecurity, have you had it this bad in recent times?
Incidentally, the numbers are reducing, even though the geographical space is expanding. But from this year alone, we've had a month that had about 3,000 deaths. It will take me a bit of time to bring up the data set, the representation, but we've had in a month where we had about 3,000 deaths this year alone. So this is not the highest number that we've recorded in this year, unfortunately. It does, of course, give a lot of concern, especially given the increasing geographical space for which these incidences are occurring. In this particular report, it covered 34 states where we recorded incidences that led to death, and over 100 plus local governments where such casualties were recorded across those 34 states.
And it's quite surprising to see that a state like Kaduna, for instance, was not part of the top 3. But let's talk about Zamfara, Kebbi, and Niger now, which were the 3 states with the highest death rates. What would you say these states have in common that have made them really vulnerable to attacks?
In simple terms, non-state actors that are challenging the supremacy of the authority, monopoly of the use of force by the state. That's the common thing they have in practice. Now we can break that down to also say on the ungoverned spaces that they have allowed. All of these ungoverned spaces, most of them anyway, belong to them, not to the federal government, and they haven't come up with any novel idea to dominate those ungoverned spaces. The second or third element is the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. Third element is the economic circumstances in those states. Huge unemployed population, especially the youth, which in simple terms you can call the youth bulge, and then the socioeconomic grievances, including politics. If you take Kaduna as an example, politics, the grievance surrounding political issues in the state. If you go to Zamfara, the same thing. So these are some of the common issues. Of course, you can also add the border areas, but that doesn't apply to Kaduna, that are more or less poorly governed and that allow the influx of foreigners, some of them with weapons and some of them with other not so good intentions into those states.
And another issue that comes up when we discuss insecurity is many people believe that our security forces are overwhelmed. And now, if we all agree that this is a problem and the best way would be to relieve the burden, how do we do that? Will it be to recruit more hands or more boots now, or to seek external help? Are you of the opinion that we have reached a point where we should actually be seeking help externally?
So the time will not allow me to go into the full details of my opinion and perspective on this issue, but I'll quickly summarize what I see as the challenge. What is the objective of our national security policy and architecture? If we bring in foreigners, what will define the basis of bringing in those foreigners? That, for me, is the major challenge. In 2019, the federal government introduced a revised national security strategy, and we were promised that there was going to be a paradigm shift where our interest, that is your interest and my interest, will be the overriding principle of the national security architecture and national security principle. I'm yet to see an implementation of that. So I'm worried that even if we bring foreigners, as long as there is no reorientation of our national security focus to make sure that the focus of that security implementation is the protection of the villager, you and I, or the average Nigerian, then unfortunately those foreigners are not going to serve us better. And that means, for me, what is even more important is to look at the focus of our national security architecture, change it to such a way, in simple terms, democratize security, so that my interest and your interest as an ordinary Nigerian will be the focus of our national security architecture and national security strategy. That is missing currently, and even if we bring in foreigners, they are not going to change that.
And again, one thing I want to get your take on is, I know at different interactions we've had, you've talked about synergy over and over again. Perhaps it would be good now to really break it down so that we can really understand how synergy should work. When you say the security agencies need to synergize to win this battle, help us get like a vivid understanding of how synergy should be.
So I would approach this from two levels. Currently, under the federal structure and our centralized security architecture, all the security agencies, the constitutionally recognized ones, belong to the federal government, and there are 27 of them. Now, by synergy, we mean that these 27 should be working towards one single objective. And that means, for instance, if we look at policing, there are nothing less than 4 or 5 agencies that are implementing policing practices in Nigeria. For the benefit of the listener, I'll quickly mention some of them. The police is the #1 agency. Of course, we all know the police. But then the road safety is also an aspect of policing. Likewise, the Civil Defense Corps. In some countries, customs and immigration are also departments within the police. Now, synergy means they working together to achieve the same purpose. In the Nigerian example, some of these agencies belong to even different ministries. So the police belongs to the Ministry of Police Affairs. Customs, not customs, immigration, civil defense belong to the Nigerian Ministry of Interior. And so it makes coordination very, very difficult. For synergy to occur, you should have both strategic synergy as well as operational synergy, where they have objectives, they determine the objectives, and then they work together towards meeting that objective. Now we can expand it to include all the other members of the 27, the other departments that are within the security architecture. The military, the same thing. The Army, the Air Force, they need to coordinate their activities. Now that is at the federal level, where we want to see all of these 27 agencies working together towards the same objective, and not the kind of unhealthy rivalry that we sometimes see. There are so many examples of that unhealthy rivalry. Now, the next level is the state level. There is no state in Nigeria at the moment that does not have one or the other form of state level security arrangement that incidentally are not even recognized by the Constitution. But they are there, and through the security vote or other means, we are funding them either directly or indirectly. So how do we incorporate this state-level security arrangements into the national security architecture so that they can synergize with the federal security agencies to achieve the same purpose? Let's remember that the purpose is to reduce insecurity in the country, and where they are operating at cross purposes, then unfortunately that purpose will be defeated. Now tie that to the third factor, which is that the criminals and terrorists are synergized. They are cooperating among themselves. In certain instances, they are also cooperating with international groups like themselves. So if you pick the Islamic State in West Africa province, it has an international wing, which is IS, and it's synergized, it's cooperating in terms of the sharing of intelligence, the weapons, funding with that international body. But locally, in our own case, our federal and state security agencies are not synergized, and sometimes they're even working at cross purposes. So that is the challenge. When we talk of synergy, we want to see a situation where there is harmony, there is coordination between all of these security agencies. And for that to be achieved, the coordinating elements within the national security architecture, the Office of the National Security Advisor, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Police Affairs, and to an extent the presidency would have to come under one umbrella, where they define in clear terms the objectives of our national security architecture and national security strategy. I mentioned at the beginning that they told us that that objective is to make the policy to be citizen-centered, where it is my interest and your interest that will be met. Again, I want to emphasize that we haven't seen the implementation of that, and that we're hoping that that would be the focus of this administration, at least before 2023.
Well, indeed, it's quite clear now. The enemies can be working with coordination, while the security forces that should be combating the fights will be working as different units. It's quite clear now. Thank you very much, Adamu, CEO Beacon Consulting Limited, for sharing your thoughts with us on the program. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you on the program.
The pleasure is mine, and stay safe.
All right, you too. Well, we'll take a short break here, and when we return, we'll be taking another angle to the security matters in the country. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, no doubt, security remains one of the major talking points in Nigeria today. From armed group violence to kidnappings and banditry, every day comes with its own challenge for the country's security operatives who are still battling insurgency in the northeast. Joining me now to discuss more on the recent security issues in the country is former Director of the Department of State Services, DSS, Mr. Dennis AMACHREE. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now, earlier I was talking to my other guest about this report that 1,031 Nigerians were killed in June this year alone. Now, what's your reaction to that?
Well, that's a very good report by Beacon Consulting. And of course, they have been bringing out reports like that every month to tell or to at least acknowledge the security problems that we are having in the country. It is very, very really worrisome that this number continue to rise instead of going down. And it affects all the different parts of the country. So I think we are strategizing, re-strategizing, but the problem persists. I think there is no end to trying to strategize again, because these incidences are going to rise, and the consequences are very, very high, as everybody, I think the citizens will realize very soon.
And the report showed that Zamfara had the highest number of deaths within the last 1 month. Now, about the Zamfara situation, it was also in that state we saw the Nigeria Air Force pilot that escaped death by a whisker recently. And to think that the governor was all over the place some time ago talking about how he has ended banditry in the state. I was even suggesting the Zamfara formula to his colleagues. So how did this resurgence happen?
You see, one thing about governors is that they believe that they can throw money at this problem, or like a fire brigade kind of process. But it's not going to work, because you are dealing with bandits. Giving them money not to attack you is not the solution. And these bandits have occupied the ungoverned spaces existing in Zamfara state. And of course, remember, there is an economic underlining there where gold enough to surpass what oil is given to Nigeria is lodged in there. And these guys are busy, mining the gold illegally, and then, of course, exporting it out of Nigeria across our ungoverned borders, porous borders. And you find out that it's something that they cannot just walk away from. And then, of course, when it comes to these kidnappings and stuff like that, it also brings in more money for them. So Zamfara case is, I shouldn't say it's a basket case, but it's a very serious case that we should look at.
So you don't think that the no-fly zone thing that the president ordered very recently, about some months ago, you don't think that it's actually yielding results?
The no-fly zone was just announced in the media, but I don't think it was even enforced. Because when you declare a no-fly zone, that means that you are going to keep jet fighters there to make sure that there is no other aircraft in the air. That means if there is any other aircraft flying around there, the no-fly zone will be enforced. And we've not heard of any enforcement of no-fly zone. Maybe right now that we've had some Tokano, about I think half a dozen of them arriving, they should be able to enforce it. Remember, we just lost an Alpha jet, which is supposed to have been shot, or allegedly shot down by the bandits. And that is a worrisome, very, very worrisome situation. If bandits have acquired the capability of shooting down a military jet, then I think we better go back to the drawing board, because that means they are, in fact, a pure war situation has to be declared.
And of course, as you rightly said, I mean, gold will remain in Zamfara. People want to exploit it. This is a natural resource that should earn or fetch us money in the country. But then, what can the Zamfara state government or the government, federal government now do to keep Zamfara safe?
One thing is that, you see, like we've always said, the governors had always looked at this situation as a federal government problem. The governors have to take charge. It is their, all these things that are going on, maybe they were gaining privately from the illegal mining of this gold and other natural resources that happen there. They should come out transparently. work with the security agencies that are with them. And this is not a state of, oh, I want state police, I want my own police. No. The police that are there, the army that are located in each state are under the command of the governor. Let them not come out and tell people, oh, no, I cannot tell them what to do. No, you can tell them what to do. And some governors have also spent a lot of money, in helping the security agencies. So use them, make sure that you utilize their services, to keep your state safe. And I think this is very, very important, because when you look at the number of casualties, the fatalities and abduction, it cut across the whole state. There is no state that is not affected. They said Bauchi, but we've had abductions and kidnappings there too. So we should I think stand up to this issue. We cannot continue like this. It's been more than a decade we are fighting this, and it's getting worse.
And speaking of solutions, now recently the Chief of Defense Staff started engagements with retired senior military officers, sort of to map out new strategies to combat insecurity. And just to quote General Lucky Rabo at the meeting in the Northwest, he said the myriad of challenges across the country is such that it's beyond the conventional military techniques and tactics. So what's your take on that? What's your response to that statement by the Chief of Defense Staff?
I think the Chief of Defense Staff should go one step further. If the fight is beyond the conventional warfare, then he should go along with it. Find out more additions that can be made. One, he has done a very good job in calling up the reserve, and in fact, he should institute the reserve. Institute it whereby retired military officers who are still in their prime. Anytime you change Chief of Army Staff or Chief of Navy Staff, you retire a lot of experienced generals who the country has spent a lot of money to train. The same thing with the police, and the same thing with even the State Security Service. So there are we should start looking within. All the retired people that are still strong enough to do all kinds of things in all different kinds of fields should be utilized, because we are in a state of war. And we have to agree to that, because it is very, very important to know that in situations like this, you use all available resources.
And lastly, before I let you go, we know that another dimension to our security issue would be the issue of agitations and talks about secession. And that would lead me to the arrest of Yoruba Nation agitator now, Sunday Adeyemo, also known as Sunday Igboho. I mean, he was arrested in Cotonou. Now, your take on that?
Well, the arrest of Igboho is becoming... people are trying to make it very emotional, so they are losing the picture, the correct picture of what is going on. Yes, people can agitate. It's a democratic right. He has been agitating, and nobody has actually arrested him until they discover that there are arms, or the security agencies had intelligence that there are arms in his possession. And of course, if you are carrying arms and it becomes a violent...
Allegedly, let me just put that out now. Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly, of course, allegedly, that the intelligence said allegedly that there are arms in his possession. And when they went in there, they recovered arms. Actually recovered arms. Now, there is the argument that, oh, these arms were not his own. They were planted there. I don't see where the security agencies will just pack arms and go with, all kinds of things, including native bulletproof vest, and then go and land them there and say, this is because this is why we came there for. All right. So if that is the case, he has his day in court. Instead of going to court to defend, his lawyers who are supposed to uphold the rule of law are now saying that, oh, he should not appear in court. He escaped the country, he ran away, he was declared wanted and he ran away. And then, of course, now to bring him back, we're having another issue again, whereby they are preventing him. So if the rule of law have to be upheld, because that's the only way, Igbo will come and tell the whole world that these arms are not mine. The onus of proof lies with him, because he has to tell them that these are not mine. I don't know how it came about. He said he has video cameras in his house. That is very good. The video camera will show where the security people were bringing the arms and then keeping it there in his house, and you know, stuff like that. So it is left for the judicial system actually to clear the air on this. But being emotional and saying, oh, we will continue, we will not allow him to be brought to Nigeria, I think is preemptive of what is happening.
Well, Mr. Dennis AMACHREE, former DSS director, thank you very much for joining us on Analysis. Thank you so much for your time and contributions.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we'll call it a wrap on this episode of the program. Well, thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time. I am Onyi Adekunle. Bye for now.